When I went to Bangladesh, it was very emotional. I remember just going there and crying. I can't explain it. When you go to Bangladesh, your heart just melts because you realize this is where you're from. We complain, like my generation complains, but you think about what our parents and grandparents went through. It's phenomenal. When I was younger, I thought there was a culture gap. But my mother would always say, Busby, Busby, one day you're gonna see, like, you come from my stomach. And I would say, but Ma, I'm an American. No, you're Bangladeshi. I say, Ma, I like the Yankees. She said, no, you're from Noakhali.
Ullah bhai. So just a reaction for this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just for this, yeah. So you got the proclamation. Bangla to bolte paren na?
Ahmad Bangla is terrible. If I try to speak Bangla, it'll be awful.
আচ্ছা অসুবিধা নেই তারপরও যেহেতু আমার যারা দেখেন তারা বাংলা ভাষাভাষী সেটি ভালো হবে আমার কাছে মনে হয় তো একটু শুনতে চাই আজকে যে প্রোক্লেমেশনটা পেলেন তাতে আপনার প্রতিক্রিয়াটা একটু শুনতে চাই কেন দেয়া হয়েছে বলে আপনি মনে করেন
Well, Ahmad Asha for years was like Bangladesh should be recognized, especially in City Hall. So, with the help of Shahana Hanif, the councilwoman, there is more representation of Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, I feel, should be represented more, just not just City Hall, but all over New York.
all over US
All over U.S., especially New York. Like, I made a film about the first generation of Bangladeshis that came to New York because I felt we needed to tell that story because we've been erased from history. It's a lost history. So the restaurant business was started by Bangladeshis.
যেটা ম্যানহাটনে শুরু হয়েছে
Oh, Manhattan, yes, all, from Sylhet, Dhaka, Noakhali, all, they say...
জাহাজে চড়ে জাম্প দিয়ে আসা বা জাহাজে চড়ে যারা এই দেশে
Yeah,
এসেছে
that's the joke. They say Indian restaurant, but the chef is all from Noakhali. You go to the base, so come on, some buy. Oh, Noakhali buy. All of them are from Bangladesh.
So, আপনার জন্ম এখানে
Ahmad Amma, Ahmad Abba, they're all from Noakhali. But I mean, all of my Kaltabais, everything, they're all in Dhaka now. But
আপনার আব্বা আম্মা নোয়াখালী থেকে আর আপনার জন্ম এখানে
I'm here in Harlem, and I've been always in Harlem in New York.
কত সালে আপনার আব্বা আম্মা এসেছে কি আপনার জানা আছে
Well, both my parents passed away, but they were one of the first ones to move to Harlem. So
when they came here
well, we never know the exact date, but we think my dad came here somewhere around 1929, 1930. He was very young. He was like 15, 16 years old.
He's the first guy here from Bangladesh.
No, there was before in 1880s, 1890s. They came by ship, and those first Bangladeshis they were in the Lower East Side. And then they started working as, just dishwashers and cooks. And then they started opening up their own businesses. That by then it was 1920s, 1930s. And then they started an organization called Pakistan League of America because Bangladesh used to be Pakistan. So the Pakistan League of America had hundreds of members who, they were all my chachas, they were all my uncles. So then that became, Bangladesh organizations, which helped start the mosque on 11th Street. And so that was sort of like the beginning of
So they all are based at Manhattan.
well, they were all over. They were, Queens, Brooklyn, and then slowly they started moving to Staten Island and Long Island. Then there's a lot of Bangladeshis that were in Montclair, New Jersey. So they kind of spread as they got better jobs and started owning restaurants. They started moving out to the suburbs.
So it's a huge history. And what is the film about? You made one film.
Yeah, the film was called In Search of Bengali Harlem. It's me going on this journey to find out who my father was. And
So it's one man story, right?
no, well, what happens is in finding out about my father, I find out this entire community of men that migrated to New York. So it was almost by accident I found out that there were hundreds of Bangladeshis that came here. So in searching for my father, I found this lost history of Bangladeshis. So the irony is I always used to tell my mother, Amma, I mean no Bangla, I'm American. And I found that now that I'm older, I feel more Bangla because I'm learning about the people that were before me and the sacrifices they made so that I could have a better life here in America. And I wanted to make a film that honors that generation.
So এখন আপনি তো ইয়েতে থাকেন নিউ ইয়র্কে থাকেন
Yeah, I live in New York. I mean, I travel with the film. We're going all over the country. And I think what's happening is that people who are watching the film realize that Bangladesh immigrants are Americans.
they had so many contributions to the society.
Yeah, and also too, I feel like we have this stereotype about Muslims. So when people see the film, we've taken it all over the country. People say, "Oh, they'll say things like, I don't know any Muslims like that, bringing a humanity." So I felt it was important to make a film where we honor, that generation that came here with nothing and became so successful. I mean, if I have to do laundry across the street, I complain. So, my father was working 7 days a week, and my cha-chas and uncles, they were successful. So I wanted to tell that story because no one is telling that story.
Oh, okay. Thank you. বাংলাদেশে গেছেন কখনো?
Yeah, I went to film it. I went a couple of years ago. I went in 2015, 2017. Ki gorom, it was so hot. So, woo.
কি ভালো লেগেছে কি?
When I went to Bangladesh, it was very emotional. I remember just going there and crying. I can't explain it. When you go to Bangladesh, your heart just melts because you realize this is where you're from. So for me, it was the best experience. So I feel
আপনার ভিটায় গেছিলেন?
I went to Noakhali. I think I tell all the children of Bangladesh, everyone should go back to Bangladesh at least once. It's the most beautiful experience of your life. Look, I'm a comedian.
You are talking about those who born here.
Yeah, first generation.
Yeah, I'm leaving. Just 1 minute.
Yeah.
1 minute. Okay, so that's বলেন হ্যাঁ.
Yeah, so I mean I went there twice, and I wasn't really prepared for what was happening. I just was like, I felt like I was a Martian. Like, where was I? And then when I landed there, within like a week, I started speaking Bangla. Oh, I became immersed in the culture. So it was something that my father.
I have some goosebumps.
Yeah.
For this, when you say "Bhai kemon achen," I have so many goosebumps.
Really? But this is why I think going to Bangladesh, for me, it changed me. And why I think the film, just step there.
Yeah.
I think why the film has an emotional journey, because I'm like a clown. I always like to be silly. But when I went there, I got to really see my parents, where they were from. So, I mean, for me, when I went there, I was like, oh, I'm just going to go there and do stuff. I wasn't expecting that. Like the funniest is when I told my kaltabais, all right, I got to go to the bathroom, and then he gave me a picture. I was like, what is that? So that's an example of like, wait a minute, time out. So I wasn't ready for all of that culture shock. So it was actually it was good, but it was eye opening. But it also made me appreciate my parents more. Like where they came from.
Yeah, everybody should recollect them. Their memories regarding this.
You know what it is? Because when you're younger, you don't want to go, I'm not going. But, when you do go back, it is... Because, I work with high school students who are from Bangladesh. They're like, I don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. I felt like that, too.
আপনি কি বাংলাদেশে তখন গেছিলেন হাই স্কুলে থাকা অবস্থায়?
Well, I work with a lot of Bangladeshi students. Yeah. And so... because there is that culture shock, when you, like, for example, when you're fasting during Ramadan, the other kids are teasing, like, during Ramadan when I was fasting, they're like, you want this sandwich? Oh, you're hungry?
Yeah.
So because, I'm there, I tell them, look, don't worry about it, it's okay. It's important that they see an adult that, they can identify with, so they don't feel like I did when I was like 7 years old. I'd be crying, I want this sandwich. You're hungry? So, culturally, the schools, they don't always have, the
so many differences there. And you born in Harlem. You raised in Harlem. You got everything, your education, your job, everything in Harlem.
But, that's a lot of my comedy. My father and my chachas, they would say, Gilai, do you know why Bangladesh fight for language, to speak Bangla, and you don't speak nothing? I was like, okay, Abba, you finished? I want to go play basketball. I didn't see the significance because, I was a little kid.
Now, how do you feel about Bangla?
Oh, I feel like, knowing what the culture and the beauty that we come from. The greatest poets come from Bengali. I mean, Tagore, everyone. I mean, like, Bangla has the most beautiful language. And for film, Martin Scorsese says the greatest filmmaker is Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray is all Bangla. All of his films are Bangla. There's a rhythm, there's a emotion, there's a tie to that, culture that you can't put into words.
আমরা একটু হাঁটতে থাকি, তাহলে বাইরে যেতে যেতে কথা বলি। খুব ইন্টারেস্টিং কথা বলছেন আপনি, এবং আপনি নিশ্চয়ই সেগুলো তুলে এনেছেন, এই যে কালচারাল গ্যাপ বলেন, বা আপনি যে ফাইট বলেন, তাদের যে ট্রমা যা 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 ছিল সব কিছু আপনি তুলে এনেছেন নিশ্চয়ই আপনার ফিল্মে। আর সেটা কত, সেটি তো ডকুমেন্টারি নিশ্চয়ই, ডকুমেন্টারি নিশ্চয়ই।
Yeah, it's a
সো
documentary.
হাউ মেনি মিনিটস, ডিউরেশন কত?
It's about 82 minutes. Yeah. Yeah, it's like an hour and like 20 minutes.
So depiction is there. Then depiction, I mean the story, that journey is there. And
Yeah.
how many human examples there? How many people
well-
you got interviewed?
It tracks, the story of my father, but wow. I don't know. I guess somewhere between we track about 10 families, but we interviewed so many people. So and we try to get people because they were Buddha by the time we were, so we tried to get as many as we could. So then we got the children of the, and even the children are old. They're like 60, 70. So that generation is a generation that is so amazing because they never complained. They never had any unions. They worked 7 days a week and they were successful. So what I find amazing, they didn't speak English. They only spoke Bangla. They, didn't know how to navigate. There was no GPS. Like one of my uncles said, when we first came to New York, we used to have a paper. So if we got lost, they would say, "Where's 47th Street?" I work 47th Street. This is what I'm saying. Like we complain. Like my generation complains, but you think about what our parents and grandparents went through. It's phenomenal.
Exactly.
It's incredible.
That's what some people don't try to understand.
Like if I go to the laundry, I don't have enough change. I don't have enough change. But they were surviving on a little budget, and
Their
then
budget, and they could not understand the language.
Yeah.
They could not speak English.
and then the thing is, they were thinking as an entrepreneur. They were thinking, well, I don't just want to be a dishwasher. I don't just want to be a cook. I want to own the restaurants. So they were entrepreneurs. So I was looking at my father and uncles. They're fobs. These are just budia betas. They don't know what they're talking about. Now, when I'm seeing these budias, I'm going, wait a minute. These guys were radicals. They were the ones that were amazing.
They established the fundamentals.
Yeah. And everything that my father said, he would say, "You don't know what hard work is. Day off, there's no day off." So I remember on Sundays, I would tell my father, "Well, Sundays is football." He said, "Why are you doing your homework? Why are you doing?" When I was your age, I was doing this, I was doing that, and I was like, "Wow, I that work ethic is amazing." So I think that that generation has never been acknowledged in history. And that it should be acknowledged. I mean, the whole restaurant industry in New York was started by Bangladeshis. So then they should be acknowledged. And then for me, now as a filmmaker, I was curious about their personal life. How did they navigate that world? How did they navigate the world of working and then having a family, and then their children talking about it? So in some parts it's very emotional because no one has interviewed the children for years.
Oh, okay. So how did you, my last question, I don't take that much more time. Last question. How did you depict the gap? I mean, ancestral gap. How did you depict in your movie? Or do you think there is a big gap, huge gap, something like you and your father, the culture, everything, for everything?
The best way to answer that, when I was younger, I thought there was a culture gap, but my mother would always say, Busby, one day you're gonna see, like, you come from my stomach. And I would say, but Ma, I'm an American. No, you're Bangladeshi. I say, Ma, I like the Yankees. She said, no, you're from Noakhali. And when I went back to Bangladesh, I realized, just like that umbilical cord is not, it's too Bangladesh. So I have friends who are African American. They said that when they went back to Africa, they were crying because it's the ancestors. For me, it's only one generation. It's my parents. So to go from New York, I mean, I'm such a New Yorker. I love hip hop, Yankees, Giants. I mean, New York is in my blood. But when I went to Bangladesh, I felt this connection to my mom and my father. And then I realized I have grandparents that are there, great grandparents. So, I don't need to go online and search for my ancestry.
Yeah.
It's right there in Bangladesh.
Very near to you. And it's very near.
And the thing is, Dhaka has changed a lot. Dhaka's becoming like New York. But in the rural areas, in the villages, you really see an entire different life. It's a simple life. It's a life of, you wake up at 5 in the morning, and it's just for a New Yorker, it's a different life, you know. So for me, it was beautiful to go back and connect to that part of my roots, which my parents are from.
Okay, thank you, Ullah. So you, Ullah Alauddin or Aladdin?
Alauddin Ullah.
Aladdin.
Alauddin Ullah.
ওকে থ্যাংক ইউ ফর ইউর টাইম। এবং আমরা আরও কথা বলবো আপনার সাথে একদিন বসে আপনার কাজ সম্পর্কে পুরো কাজটা নিয়ে কথা বলবার চেষ্টা করব। হ্যাঁ,
If you want to come by Thursday, come by Thursday.
দিস থার্সডে
Day after tomorrow, Thursday, at the screening is at Museum of the City of New York, 104th and 5th Avenue. If you go to mcny.org, just RSVP for Thursday. Then April 20th, we're doing BMCC, which is downtown by Tribeca, or I think we moved it to April 27th. So we'll be Thursday, MCNY, Museum of the City of New York, and April 27th we'll be at BMCC.
ওকে থ্যাংক ইউ।